Hi and well, Hi and welcome to the playoff edition of the Grid. I'm Mike Forman, joined as always by Ray Castillo. Playoffs are here, Ray. A little change in the weather too. Along with the playoffs, we're going to have a little nippy weather this weekend.
Yeah.
They get started early, always on the first week. We always seem to have a bunch of Thursday games. It's no different this season. And we got a couple of games on Thursday with 14 3A and 13 3A in Division 1. Let's start with right there, and let's go first. We have Palacios and Edna playing. It's a rematch of last year. Edna pretty much handled Palacios last year fairly easily. This year, Palacios comes in as the second seed, Edna the third seed. This will be an interesting matchup. Palacios, they're more wide open, like to throw the ball around a little bit with their freshman quarterback, Anthony White. And Edna, of course, your classic slot T team. So it'll be an interesting matchup, don't you think?
Yeah, the Palacios is obviously a way different team than last year, and that could be a big factor. They had a good season. They want to carry that over against the Cowboys. And you look at Edna, even though they got a lot of new faces, a new head coach, the Cowboys know what it takes to get advance in the playoffs. They've done it. They're a playoff team every year. It seems they can, and hopefully they can continue to do that against Palacios. But it should be a good one.
Yeah, and it'd be interesting because here you have Palacios that likes to throw it around, and they have a really good running back in Gary Haynes, of course. And then Edna, which is basically going to come right at you, and they want to keep the ball and control the clock. So I think the real key here in this game will be whether or not Palacios is able to match Edna's physicality. They're gonna have to do that if Palacios has a chance to win. We have another matchup with those two districts with Hallettsville and Rice Consolidated. These two teams were actually scheduled to play during the regular season, but the game was canceled. So they're meeting, but they're not unfamiliar with each other. They usually play almost, lately, almost every year. So the Brahmas come in, just a yard away from being the top seed.
Yeah.
And boy, they've been playing really well lately. Jonathan Brooks just lighting it up. And then you have Rice Consolidated, which has started to play better late in the season.
Yes, and like you said, Mike, Hallettsville, just a whole different team from last year, and now they're ready to start this playoff run. They've been there before. Head coach Tommy Pensick, he talked about before the season, Rice Consolidated being one of those teams he was looking forward to scrimmaging, and like you said, Mike, it was canceled, but now he'll get that chance here in the bi-district round. So should be a good game in El Campo. Hallettsville's motivated. I got to talk to Tommy yesterday a little bit, and he said, I asked him if he was ready, and he said we better be. So
Yeah,
same thing goes for Rice Consolidated.
yeah, they have to be. And a couple of games in 2A Division 1, of course, the Shiner Comanches, number 2 in the state, 10-0, just been mowing people down. They start off against Freer. Freer's a 500 team, ended up finishing fourth in its district. The Comanches, this is what you call these first week 1-4 matchups, which some of them, let's be honest, can get pretty ugly. As long as you're going to have 4 teams in the playoffs, sometimes it's going to happen. But we'll see. You still got to play the game. And of course, Shiner handed Weimar its only loss, and Weimar also plays Thursday. They'll play Santa Maria. They have to go down to Corpus Christi to meet Santa Maria, the third place team in that district. And actually, Santa Maria has been an improving program. I mean, I know a couple of years ago Santa Maria met Shiner and it was pretty ugly. But Santa Maria has kind of improved every year. But I still think if Weimar takes care of business, it should prevail.
Yeah, Weimar, another team in that district that can surprise some people. And Santa Maria, I did get to see them against Shiner, so
Yeah.
they were up and coming at the time, and they've really developed since then.
Okay, we should mention too that Thursday night there is a game here in Victoria at Memorial Stadium. I know that we have a playoff game, then that's Odom and Stockdale are playing. So if you're just looking for a game to go to and wanna go see and stay close by home, there's your opportunity right there. And of course, I know a lot of people are waiting for Friday night at Memorial Stadium when Victoria West begins the playoffs. They play La Jolla Palmview. West back in the playoffs. Had to put together a 5-game winning streak to get there, but they did, and you have to give them credit for that.
Yeah, if there's any team with momentum coming in right now, it's the Warriors. Obviously, like you said, 5 games in a row, back in the playoffs for the first time since 2017. So, those guys are motivated. And if they can continue playing the way they did, especially with those big wins against Flower Bluff and Corpus Christi Veterans Memorial, they should be okay for this bi-district game.
Yeah, and I guess we can't emphasize enough how important that home field is, because you're dealing with a team from the Valley. So really what you are is you get a chance to play in your home stadium instead of having to get in a bus for about a 5-hour bus ride. And that makes a big difference. So West certainly has everything in its favor. But it still has to go out and play the game and execute like it has been the last 5 weeks.
Yes.
And of course, also another team that got off the home field, the Calhoun Sand Crabs. The Sand Crabs will be playing Mission Sharyland. Coming off the big win over Cal Allen, I guess what Coach Richard Whitaker wants to guard against is any kind of a letdown.
Right. And he told me when we talked earlier, Richard told me, it was nice. Regular season's nice to play well and win a district title, but he said that means nothing no more. It's a new season now with the playoffs, and he's not taking Sharyland lightly. They did finish 4th in their district, but he's going to treat it just like any other opponent. And if they have any momentum from that Cal Allen game, that would definitely help. As we saw, just another strong performance, strong defensive performance, should I say, against the Wildcats.
Right, and actually it was a little bit different for Calhoun because it scored 17 points. I mean, after scoring over 50 in all its district games, but we knew that wasn't going to happen against Cal Allen, and you have to give the Sand Crabs credit. They did what they needed to do to win that game, and they executed their plan, and they came out with a district title because of that. So also someone who will have to get on a bus is the St. Joseph Flyers. Flyers have to go up to Harlandale Stadium in San Antonio to play the Holy Cross Knights. Speaking to Coach Brian Jones yesterday, he said that Holy Cross is good, but the alternative would have been if they finished 4th, they would add play Austin Regents. So he was very relieved at least to get the 3rd seed. Yeah. But that doesn't mean it's going to be an easy game, and they're going to need another strong performance. They had one last week from Keon Griffin, who we mentioned today won the Ford Tough Award. Had an incredible game against Cypress Christian. The Flyers are going to have to play well to win this game.
Yes, and they did get to see San Antonio Holy Cross in a scrimmage before the season. Obviously, that was a long time ago, but St. Joseph happy to be back in the playoffs, and happy, like Ryan said, not to play Austin Regents, but they're ready. They'll take on whoever they need to, and if they'll hopefully get another big performance from Keon.
Right, and now we don't like to look ahead, but there is a potential next week for an interesting area matchup if both teams can win this week. And one of them is El Campo. The Riceburgs play Fredericksburg, the Battling Billies. They're coming from the hill country. And the Riceburgs, they kind of ended district on a little sour note. They lost to Columbia, which is, is a very good team. Lost 17-9. I was a little shocked that Columbia was able to shut down El Campo that much and those running backs they have. But El Campo will look to bounce back, and if El Campo can win, there's a good chance next week they could see the Beeville Trojans. The Beeville plays Zapata. I mean, we've talked about this all year, the job that Chris Sosa did in his first season back at Beeville. 10-0 for the first time in school history there. Just an amazing season. The only thing I think that might be a concern for the Trojans is they had their bye week last week. And, when you're going well, you don't like to stop playing, even though I'm sure that gave them a chance to heal up. Still, so that's a potential future matchup that would be a pretty exciting game, wouldn't you think?
Oh, definitely. Like you mentioned it, Beeville having a great season. El Campo, they did have that tough, way to finish district
Mhm.
play, but they came out playing really well under Wayne Condra.
Right, and also on Friday we have a couple more District 14 3A Division One teams playing. The Industrial Cobras, who are the district champion, they'll be in that first round against the Hitchcock Bulldogs. Now, I saw Hitchcock last year against Goliad in the playoffs, and they were running the slot T. So that here we have two teams again that run the slot T. Although Industrial is, as a lot of people have pointed out, is a little bit different because they will get in the shotgun and do some stuff. But Industrial, this has been a great season for the Cobras. I know they feel like they really need to win in the playoffs.
Yes, and they've come such a long way when you look at last year, the whole district for that matter. But Industrial district, they set out they did what they set out to do, and that was win a district title, and now they're gonna start this playoff run.
Right, and of course, a really intriguing game is the other game involving a 14 3A Division One team, the Oakham Bulldogs. A lot of people, they were ranked in the state poll to begin the season. Of course, they struggle a little bit. They have a very young team, but a very talented team. They're going to be playing the Columbus Cardinals, and that should be a good matchup. Those two teams, if you go back about 5 to 10 years, used to play every year in non-districts. A lot of times they would open the season, so they're not unfamiliar with each other. But this is a good test. I mean, you look at Yoakum. I mean, they've been to the semifinals the last 3 years, and I know Coach Bo Robinson wants to continue. And he did say earlier this year that if they could ever get it together, they could be a pretty good team. They're just young and they make mistakes at inopportune times. But I think Yoakum has the potential if they get it together to make a run.
Yeah, you almost expect Yoakum to, make a run each year, like you said. The past 3 years, you just almost expect them to do something. And even though they have those new faces and young players, anytime you have Coach Bo Robinson, you always have a chance.
Right, and then of course we have the District 14 3A Division Two. We have three teams who actually tied for second, but of course they were seeded, and that's Tidehaven, Ganado, and Schulenburg all get underway. These teams, Ganado's in the playoffs for the first time in a long time. Coach Brent Bennett's done a great job up there. We'll see how they match up. They play Brady. This is one of those deals where we found out the UIL, sometimes has a strange way of drawing things out, and Brady is really, you don't like to think of them as a Region 4 team, but they are, and so that's who Ganado has, and we'll see how that goes. Now, moving on to Class 2A Division 1, the Refugio Bobcats begin their playoff run. They'll be over at Cuero Gobbler Stadium, and they'll be playing the Brazos Cougars. Brazos is a team that's kind of mystified people. A lot of people expected them to be in the thick of the district race in Shiner's district, but things haven't worked out for Brazos. And Refugio, though, I understand that Brazos had some players suspended for the Shiner game. So this is one of those things, it's like you never really know when you get in the playoffs who you're going to see, because a lot of times you have players injured that come back, or players that have been suspended that come back. So you just don't know what team. But Refugio, the thing about Refugio and Shiner right now is, everybody's talking about week 3, because that's when those 1 and 2 teams would meet. But they still have to win 2 games to get there. So
Yeah.
that's the key, is just kind of focusing in and making sure you're paying attention to your opponent in front of you.
Right. And those teams aren't going to even look ahead. As you know, Mike,
Yeah.
these programs are going to take it one game at a time, and that's just going to be the focus. But,
Mhm.
they're all thinking about that in the back of their mind.
Right, and of course, we do have a couple of ranked teams in Class 2A Division 2, and Flatonia and Falls City begin their first round matchups. Flatonia will play Iola, and we have Falls City playing La Villa, and I would think that if those teams take care of business, they should be okay. And then we do have one game Saturday. Runge's waiting a Saturday to play because really what happened there on that was Runge had to play its final game against the Heinous on a Saturday night. So, of course, I guess Coach Vargas decided he didn't want to turn around and go a short week in the first week of the playoffs. So Runge will be playing Bruni on Saturday night in Sinton. So if you have a Jones for seeing some high school football on Saturday night, you can take the ride down to Sinton and catch a game. And of course, first week we'll see how we come out. We'll see if we have a lot of teams that can make it out. And then next week we'll be back at it again in round 2. And make sure to check on all the scores at avosports.com, and you can read about it in the grid in the e-edition. And we'll have you on Twitter just like we always do. And then we'll get you updated on what's happening next week on the grid.